It is Wednesday night, March 24th. Actually, it's Tuesday night. Well, I'm throwing us for a loop. We usually do it on Wednesdays. March 24th, Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. It is the NC Speakeasy with Chris Green and Mark Skog. I am Chris Green, and we are your fourth week pairing as usual. So, how are we doing this evening, Mark?
I'm doing well. As we were chatting before we went live here, I'm preparing for a trip abroad to London for almost 2 weeks. So this is a nice reprieve from packing and checking lists to make sure we have everything. So I'm happy to sit down and chat a little sports tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. You're getting ready to go over to the old country, and I'm getting ready to fly to our nation's capital next week and then on to Boston from there. So we're both going to be traveling here for the foreseeable future, but your trip should be much more interesting than mine.
Well, I'm disappointed. You know, people don't know, but we've chatted before about trying to meet up when you came to DC because that's where I'm at. It's just the only time I ever travel anywhere. It happens to be the day that you're coming on into town. So
That's how it usually works. So whenever I come to town or you come to Cleveland, we're always going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Well, luckily we got this nice little chat we can do. So
exactly.
This way.
There we go. So, all right. So let's go ahead and start it off. Where do you want to start off? You want to start off baseball, basketball, or disasters?
Let's jump in with the Tribe. I think that they're getting drastically underplayed. So I'd like to start off with them. I was floored today with the 1,000 tweets of, and I had to jump on it too, of the Tribe on the cover of Sports Illustrated saying, "This is why the Indians will win the World Series." I'm amazed at this, and you and I have talked about it before. I think I am drastically underplaying their chances compared to the national media, and it really has me questioning myself. What did you think of that wonderful cover and that prediction there?
Well, I'll be honest. If my sister hadn't tweeted it or texted it to me, I wouldn't have known because I haven't been online today. So, I see that, and of course, you think back to 1987 when they were on the cover, and that season turned into a debacle.
Yeah, 101 losses debacle.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay.
That 87 one had to be one of the worst predictions in the history of sports.
Oh, I'm sure. And usually if it's Cleveland related, it's bound to go bad. So.
I was surprised at how many people were like, "Oh my God, don't let this happen. Don't tweet this, don't put us on the cover." And I have to admit, my initial reaction was like that. Not that I could, because I don't believe in the Sports Illustrated jinx, but it was more the, man, I wish we were, for some reason, and maybe it's the psychology, maybe it's being the damaged Cleveland fan, I wanted us to fly under the radar more with the Tribe, and it seemed to put us front and center. But, the more I thought about it as the day went on, the more I thought, hey, bring it on. If they think they're this good, maybe this will get the fans a little bit more fired up. The diehard Indian fans are certainly on board and seem to be pretty eager, but it seems to be the people who were sports fans but on the periphery haven't bought into this team. And maybe if by having someone like Sports Illustrated jump on board, maybe that'll bring some more of the fans on.
Yeah,
no, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say absolutely. I mean, it's anytime most of us Cleveland fans have just been snake bitten over the years. Every time we get our hopes up, something always seems to happen. So, of course, as soon as we see something like that, everybody cringes, like, "Oh no, not again! Here we go again! Here comes another 100-loss season, or the starting quarterback's going to break his leg, or I mean." Think about it. The Cavaliers added two of the best players in the NBA last year, and everybody since then has been waiting for the other shoe to drop. And,
yeah.
I mean, we'll get into that more later, but I'm like you. I was a little bit. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I'm not as high on what everybody else is saying about this team. I'm kind of in the same boat I was last year. I think they're going to be a good team, but I just don't get where they're thinking they're going to go this far all of a sudden. I mean, I'm thinking the same similar record to what they had last year, and I don't know if it's just everybody else's expectations for the league have dropped or what it is, because if they win 87 games again this year, that's not normally a playoff season.
Yeah, but people seem to be, who are predicting them to do well, or putting them in that range and thinking that'll put them in the playoffs. So maybe the expectations for the league is a bit down in that. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody that you can point to say that's going to be a dominant powerhouse team. I see a lot of teams that can make the playoffs, and a lot of teams that you could say conceptually can win the World Series. And I have to admit, I got to put the Indians in that group the more I looked at it. Now, that being said, I think to do that, everything needs to break right. And how often does that happen in a baseball season? The Cleveland aspect of it aside, how often does that happen for any team in the season? I mean, we're asking for a lot of duplicate, or shall we say second half performances that we saw last year. We want to see that duplicated over a whole year for a lot of young pitchers. Is that realistic? I tend to think not. I tend to think that they won't quite meet that, but who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe the young talent is enough to pull them through. But I have to say the predictions are getting me excited. I'm starting to look forward to the start of, spring training is just so long. And, and we all follow enough people on Twitter, enough of the reporters who are literally tweeting out play-by-plays sometimes from these spring training games, and I just can't kind of watch that. So I tend to ignore it because of that. I almost feel not overly saturated, but just that it's hard to pay attention to spring training on a day-to-day basis. I know that some of the diehards do, and God bless them for it, but for me, it's really the last few weeks before the season starts, and that's about where we're at now. So this is getting exciting. I'm looking forward to opening day. I'm looking forward to all of it, and really see how this team responds. I think you and I had talked about this before. I think they got to really try and get off to a better start than what they had been. I think it's really key. There is going to be some pressure on them now with some of these expectations. They've got young guys, yes, who need to find their way, and of course a slow start is not the end of the world. But it would be really nice to see them come out of the gate and play well from the get-go.
Yeah, it's important that they start well, because if you look at their schedule, they're playing a lot of the Central teams in the first month. I mean, they play the Astros to start the season, but then they come home against the Tigers for the home opener. Then they play the White Sox at home before going to Minnesota, Chicago, and then Detroit, and then back home versus the Royals. So they're pretty much playing the entire AL Central in the month of April.
Yeah, that's a lot. I didn't realize that. That is they have to play that well. They can't sleepwalk their way through that. They've got to come out well. Well, of course, and it sounds like, the one, to me, significant chunk of news a couple chunks of news that have come out of the Tribe camp that we can take a look at substantially is that Gavin Floyd's done, right? So
pretty much.
I know our good buddy Marcus was so down on that signing for this very reason. He saw it as just like an unnecessary risk, a gigantic waste of money, and it's hard to argue against him. Given Floyd's injury history, I understand the idea of rolling the dice. I had extensive chat with Marcus about this online, and it's not just Marcus, other people have pointed it out too, and I was trying to understand, well, what's the problem with this signing? It's not a huge amount of money, but it's a guy that, he seems like he can fill a role. He seems like he's a good pitcher. But the basic gist that they had expressed to me, and it's hard to say that they were wrong, is that it was too risky. It was too risky of a signing, and that appears to come true, and that certainly was frustrating. And the second thing on that, and I'll let you jump on in, is the Swisher news, is that it sounds like he's really not going to play till May. Is this right? And even then, I think he might just be a limited DH role. It's not the end of the world. I'm not sure I was expecting a ton more from him, but it was just interesting to finally kind of hear, okay, that the expectations on Swish should be really tampered down, given what we're hearing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I kind of was thinking along those lines with him anyway. I really didn't have any expectations. I don't know if you heard it, but when Bull and Fox had their buy and sell, was it last week or a week before that? I tweeted in. I said, so buy or sell. The Browns' next starting quarterback throws for more touchdowns than Nick Swisher hits home runs.
I'd buy that actually.
Yeah, they didn't. They actually bought Swisher hitting more home
Ooh,
runs, which
yeah, I
I
don't.
didn't really see that. I mean, I think last year he only hit 11, and I mean he only missed 2 months last year. So, whereas who knows what he's going to do this year and how he's going to come back when he does come back.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. I'm glad to see that. It sounds like Moss
Yeah.
has played well. Has played. That I heard a nice interview with Francona, who, man, that guy's a great talker. He
Hmm.
really is a good interview, and
Hmm.
you can see why he is the face of the franchise. And it's sometimes let me digress for a second here. It's a little frustrating when you see a manager or a coach kind of be your face of your franchise. It almost feels like a cop out. What, you don't
Hmm.
have players good enough to do this?
Yeah.
But the truth is, it makes a lot of sense with him. For
Hmm.
a fan base as somewhat fragile and damaged as ours, he comes across as that soothing dad who's been through the battles and could put his arm around your shoulder and tell you it's okay. And I have to admit that's how I feel when he talks. And so, but anyways, he was touching on some of that with Moss, and he said, "Look, I don't know if he's 100% yet. I don't know when he's going to be, but he said I can tell you right now he's better than where he was before already last year,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
that's very encouraging to hear that
Hmm.
he's coming along."
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going back to your point there about the Francona being the face of the franchise, I think in one respect that's a good thing because so many people are tired of listening to Mark Shapiro and Chris Antonetti parrot each other pretty much every time, and that's been going on for, let's see, Shapiro's been with the Indians since the '90s, so, and I mean, ever since he took over as general manager, the message has pretty much been the same every year. So, and he just doesn't have a ton of credibility with fans, I don't think. I mean, don't get me wrong, nobody dislikes him. They just
Yeah.
dislike the message.
Yes, I think that he is put in a difficult position by the owner,
Hmm.
and I am someone who am more in their corner, in Shapiro and Antonetti's corner, than out of it. I didn't
Hmm.
used to feel that way 2 years ago, but their response to such a terrible year that they had, I was saying, well, come on, it's about time they clean house and move on
Hmm.
from that. But they did have a plan, and they came back and they really kind of reshifted this team, and then making the playoffs with Francona in their first year. And the truth is, really staying in a race that they had no business staying in last year makes me feel that, yes, okay, I can see there's a lot of positives to be had out of that group. But you're 100% right. Shapiro says the right things, but it's the same thing, and he's handcuffed by an owner who will only spend so much. And Shapiro he's okay with that. Like, he understands this is
Hmm.
the cards that are dealt, but after a while, it is a little bit tiresome for fans to hear that voice over and over again. So to hear Francona, who's been through it before, come in and say, "Hey, we can win with this," it does make you feel good. It
Yeah.
definitely does.
Hmm. And going back to your point too about the Gavin Floyd signing and all the skeptics out there. I mean, I was skeptical about it as well. I thought at the money, I figured, you know what, it's probably not going to turn into anything. I mean, at least it wasn't 8 million like they wasted on Brett Myers last year.
Yeah.
So at least it was only half of that. But I kind of figured the same thing that he was probably going to get hurt again, and lo and behold, here we are. He didn't even make it through spring training. So it's disappointing in that, but who knows what he would have done anyway even if he had stayed healthy. So it just pretty much guarantees that TJ House is in the rotation, which is fine. He pitched well in the second half last year. But the big thing with the Indians, I think, is once again, they're still relying on a lot of inexperience in that rotation. And despite the expectations out there, I don't know if that's realistic. I mean, we've seen Corey Kluber was solid 2 years ago, and he was awesome last year. that's a lot to hold him to expect him to be Cy Young again this year. I mean,
Totally agree.
it's probably very unrealistic. Um, Carlos Carrasco, who started off horrifically before being moved to the bullpen and turning it around, is he going to be the same pitcher that started terribly last year, or is he going to be the guy that was unhittable in the second half of the season?
I'm not 100% convinced Carrasco's a starter.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So
I'm not 100% convinced the same with Salazar.
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at him, what he did, I mean, beautiful stuff. No
Mm-hmm.
one's going to deny that. Okay, so let's stipulate his talent. But the truth is that, you know, his fastball is electric, but it's pretty straight, and
It's straight.
you know,
Yep.
he has trouble getting through that third time in the order. You know, and just 2 times through the lineup isn't enough to be a solid starter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how electric you are, it's just not.
Yep.
So we are counting on that front office, that coaching staff, and Callaway, who, let's face it, has done a great job as a pitching coach. We're counting on them to make the right evaluation on Carrasco and Salazar to say that, yes, they are legit starters for us. They can
Mm-hmm.
do this. You know, if I see, let's put it this way, if I see erraticness out of those two, I'm okay with that, in the sense that I want to see that they are, how do I say it? I guess building towards something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what I don't want to see is, you know, 2 great times through the lineup and then get destroyed from Salazar every single time out, or
Mm-hmm.
at least 3 out of the 4 times he pitches.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to move past that. So if
Yeah.
it happens, you know, 1 out of every 3 times, okay, I get it. You know, I get
Mm-hmm.
it. He's young. He's still figuring this out. So they have high expectation for these guys, and I think that's, you know, it's hell. They're showing a lot of confidence in them.
Mm-hmm.
But as a fan, and as I like to think of myself as trying to be somewhat realistic, is that going to actually happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, Chris, it will be one of the things that will make this season exciting,
Mm-hmm.
is to see that. Because if they start fast and you see those guys really starting to put it together early on, those young starters,
Yep.
man, oh man, this could get really good. This could
Yep.
get really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I mean that's what it's going to come down to. Is yes, they're going with youth, but I mean there's other teams that have gone with youth in their rotations too. I can name the A's out here who have done that and
Yeah, they have.
succeeded and made the playoffs. So it's not like it can't be done. It's just one of those things where you kind of get a little bit nervous about putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So
Yep.
It's either going to make or break the season, I think. So they're either going to be right and they'll be great, and they could be wrong and they could be ugly.
Yeah, you know, I agree with you, actually. I think that, you know, I tend to look at the lineup and say what's happening here, or the bullpen. But you know, if those starters perform, we should make the playoffs, even
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the deficiencies are in the lineup. If those starters come through, we should be there at the very end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then let's get to the other side of the ball, the defense and the hitting. So this team was one of the worst in defense last year. And other than Jose Ramirez taking over midway through last season, and now we have Brandon Moss in right field, it's pretty much the same players at every position. So can we realistically expect this team to be better defensively?
I don't know. It's a great question. That's the other big question mark, and it's a great question. I see no reason to expect Chisenhall to make some sort of big leap.
Mm-hmm.
I think Santana, once he settled in at first, I thought he looked pretty good. I have not seen stats. I've not seen the metrics on what they think of him as a first baseman, and I'm not sure that, you know, obviously first being is not necessarily a premier defensive position, but I thought he settled in nicely. But I am not convinced that Chisenhall is a regular third baseman with his glove. I'm not convinced that Kipnis is at second.
Mm-hmm.
I think our catcher is great. I think that Brantley is above average. I couldn't tell you anything about Mawson Wright. I couldn't tell you a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But given that he is the combo DH first baseman right fielder, just that fact alone doesn't give me a ton of confidence. And I have no idea what Bourne's got left, and I'm not sure that he was ever, for the metrics, a great outfielder. I think when his legs are there, I thought he did fairly well, but outside of that, you don't see a lot of pluses. So I think it's going to have to be. I hope it's been an emphasis in spring training. I don't know if you can turn a defensive team around through coaching and focus and that kind of stuff, or do you just really need to have the talent there to do it? I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard them talk about that they've been really focusing on defense and stuff early this season. And I mean, some of that defense last year, early in the year, was a fluke, too. I mean, we know Gomes is a great defensive catcher, and he had
a rough start.
He had like 11 errors in the first 25 games, which was just horrible. And I think he ended up finishing with close to 20 for the year, actually. But he just was not throwing the ball early. And I mean, that's not the same guy we saw catching at the end of the previous season. And even late last year, he seemed to really settle down. And
he did. He settled down both at the plate and behind the plate. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a cliche to say they're pressing because of that contract, but that doesn't mean every cliche is wrong. And in that case, I think that might be true that he was doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I think Santana's fine at first base. He's much better there than he was at catcher or third base. That's for sure.
I think you and me with a bad back and a bad knee, were better in either spot than he was in there.
Yeah,
let's face it,
exactly.
That's rough.
Yeah, that was pretty ugly when he was at those two. Kipnis, he played better at second base 2 years ago than he did last year, so I don't know if it had anything to do with the injuries he was going through or what. So he's never going to be a Gold Glove second base.
No, he's not.
I mean, if he can play, I guess, as well as Carlos Baerga there was when he played, we could live with it at least.
Yeah.
Ramirez is fine at shortstop, and we all know he's just holding the spot anyway till Lindor is ready, which could be very quickly based on his spring. And Chisenhall is, well, he is what he is.
Yeah.
If he hits, it'll be fine. If he's not hitting and he's playing like that at third, I'll be honest, I don't know that he'll be there all year. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma because I don't know what. I mean, we know some of the backup options, but we don't know. I mean, at least I don't. I'm not a guy who knows the minors well at all. As to what the plan B is if Chisenhall fails at third.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, option one's to go to Mike Aviles there. Yep. The next thing would be probably Giovanni Urshela, who's going to be at Columbus. He moved up from Akron partway through last season. He had like 20 home runs, and he's supposed to be pretty good defensively at third base. So he'd be the next guy up, I would imagine. I know he just got sent back to the minor league camp last week. But he's also had some injuries this spring that have played into that. But that's your options there. Brandon Moss, when I've seen him out here in Oakland, he was always a first baseman or a DH. I've never actually seen him in the outfield. They said he's athletic enough to play out there. So,
oh God,
yeah. I mean, we saw Ryan Garco out in the outfield, so let's hope he's not that.
Oh my God, I think my years of counseling suppressed that Ryan Garco memory.
We talked about Bourne. I thought that when he was brought in, they said he was a Gold Glove outfielder, and he hasn't shown it since he's been here. That's for sure. And Brantley, like I said, Brantley's fine and left. He has a ton of assists. He makes the routine plays, and he sometimes makes the spectacular plays. So we'll just have to see what happens out there. But they played better at the second half of last year than they did in the first half, but I don't know if they could have been much worse than they were in the first half. So we'll see what happens. But that's also going to tell you where this team goes. Is along with that pitching, the defense is either going to help that pitching or it's going to hurt them.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. 100% right.
So, but real quick, we'll just go touch on the hitting. I don't know. I mean, they struggled to score runs a lot last year. They won a lot of games in the second half, scoring 4 runs, 5 runs. But they had just so many games last year where they didn't score 4 or 5 runs. So
Well,
I don't know.
not only that, but I mean, you remember down the stretch. I mean, they were playing guys in the lineup, the names we never heard of before, and
Hmm.
some of that obviously is due to injury, and
Yep.
I don't know. It's not realistic to expect them to have no injuries, obviously, this
Yep.
year.
Hmm.
But if they can get their everyday guys in that lineup for a good chunk of the time, hopefully that will help alleviate some of that issue,
Hmm.
and we can start to see guys who hit better in the second half try to continue that on, or, and then, like we said before, the concern being, is Kipnis, what is he? I feel like with Kipnis and Chisenhall, and I hate to keep singling them out, but they're two younger guys who I don't really know what they are yet, because
Hmm.
how much of Kipnis's last year was put on injuries? Well, 2 years ago he had a fantastic start, and then
Hmm.
he kind of fizzled, and when last year it never got going. Last year
Hmm.
Chisenhall had a great start, a
Really
great
hot
first
start.
half, and then I don't know if people really realize how god awful he was down the stretch. I mean, it was
Hmm.
terrible. And so I still don't know. I don't have a feeling of like that's who that guy is. I can say that about Gomes. I can say that about Santana. I could say that about Brantley. I can't say that about those two, and they are such a key cog to this team hitting well.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, going back to Chisenhall, so right after the Rangers game last year where he had the 3 home runs and
Yeah, yeah.
9 RBI, he was hitting like 390 then, close to, he was right up there by 400. And then after that, the rest of the season, he hit 215. So that kind of
Jeez.
puts it in perspective right there, yeah.
He's got that gorgeous swing, but that swing is a big swing, and
Hmm.
you know, there. I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm.
Yeah.
I'm. No, I don't have a great response for him. I'm at a bit of a loss for words. I mean, you can see why he's looked at as
Hmm.
a talented prospect. The
Hmm.
question is, can he put it all together consistently?
Well, and that's it. I mean, he is still he's still a young player,
He is
so
young.
they still lack A lot of young players lack consistency, and if he
Hmm.
can get that consistency, then he'll be fine and he'll do a great job. But can he ever do that? Because I mean, that's always been the tale of Lonnie Chisenhall. At least what we've seen so far is he goes through these stretches where he's red hot or he is ice cold. And last year was probably the biggest showing of that because he did play the entire season with the Indies. I mean, he started off on the bench and then hit his way into the lineup, is what it amounted to,
That's true.
and he hit and hit and hit, and then about the middle of June or end of June, that he stopped hitting the rest of the year. I mean, you see that 280 batting average, like, oh, he had a great year, but the people who were paying attention, no, he was just ungodly hot at the beginning of the year and just ice cold the rest of the way. So he's just got to find that if he hits 280 consistently through the entire year, you know what? That's a good year.
Yeah, I'll
But
take that. I'll take that.
yeah, exactly. So and that'll help him. And going back to Kipnis, you're right. I don't know that we know exactly what he is. I mean, I heard that he bulked up last year trying to hit for more power, and I don't know if that had anything to do with how he played last year or getting hurt or was slow or whatever. And supposedly he slimmed back down this year, so he could have another good year or he could just continue to struggle. I mean, he was always a great hitter coming up through the minors, so I got to believe that he didn't just forget how to hit. So if he stops trying to hit home runs and just plays as the doubles hitter that he was previously, he may go back to being that all-star second baseman.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I see those two because they're the biggest question marks for me as far as expectations,
Mm-hmm.
as some of the real key for it. I expect a better year out of Santana now that he's settled
Mm-hmm.
in at first. I think
Yes, yes.
I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to exceed expectations in a lot of ways this year, and I certainly don't expect Brantley to produce the same season last year. I think it's unfair to expect that
Mm-hmm.
out of him, but I think he'll
Sure.
still produce an all-star worthy season, and I think that'll be great if he can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that he's a MVP candidate like he was last year, but I definitely agree. I think he can be an all-star player again and be very solid for the team. I mean, the one thing he's always shown since he's been with the Indians is he is an exceptional clutch hitter. So he always has a knack for driving in runs in key spots because he always stays even keeled and will just hit the ball wherever it's pitched. He doesn't sit back trying to hit home runs or whatever. He has a good hitting approach, which means he's always going to be a pretty solid hitter and will knock in runs, which is what they need from him. They don't need him to hit 350 or anything like that. They don't need him to hit 30 home runs either. Now that they've added Brandon Moss, I got to say, I think he's their first real legitimate power hitter that they've had. I mean, I know Santana hits 25 home runs, and
Yeah, but that's
you can
not
see
who
that.
he is.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I would say Moss is the first legitimate power hitter since before Hafner originally got hurt that
Yeah,
they've had. So he can only help this team if he's healthy, and that could be a big plus too. I don't expect him to hit for a high average, but he'll give the Santana the protection that we all thought Swisher was going to bring in originally.
yeah.
Uh,
No, that's a good point.
so um, but Gomes, I think, will definitely be a solid hitter. And Brantley, I'm not Brantley, Bourne, he's another question mark. I mean, he came in as the speedster, and I know he's had a ton of leg injuries, and he's had like 33 or something combined stolen bases the last 2 years after he stole 60 with Atlanta a couple of years ago. So if he stays healthy this year, and so far so good, he may make an impact at the top of the order. But once again, he's not a Kenny Lofton hit 300 get on base guy. He's more of that Marquise Grissom
Yep,
player
that's a good
where
comparison.
he's going to hit 270. If he's healthy, he may steal you 30 bases, maybe a little bit more in the season. He's not going to hit as much power as Grissom was, but reminds me of a very similar player.
Yeah, it's always difficult when you have guys who are getting a little older whose real value is derived from their legs.
Mm-hmm.
Because how much of that can you expect to continue? I did hear an interview with him where he was saying that he is approaching things a little differently physically in terms of his hamstrings. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's wonderful if that holds true. You
Yeah.
know, that's the one thing. I mean, we all kind of take it for granted. We're like, man, it's fun. They play baseball. They play every
Mm-hmm.
day. But those seasons, I don't think fans. Let me back this up. When we watch football, I think everyone appreciates what a battle that is for those
Mm-hmm.
athletes. When we watch basketball, because they're such superior athletes, the size, the speed, the athleticism, I think we can appreciate how the back-to-back nights and the travel you start to wear down. But
Mm-hmm.
baseball, I think, is a real grind that gets underappreciated by fans. I
Mm-hmm.
certainly know for a long time, underappreciated it. And then it started to dawn on me more that, man, it's got to be tough day in and day out to always have yourself prepared to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as these guys get older, it's more difficult. So as much as Bourne, this is where I'm getting with this, as much as Bourne has said, like, I'm approaching things differently with my legs and, on his offseason, I think that's great. But it is a long haul, and it is hard to expect these guys to be in peak form all the way through. And that's where I saw complaints last year about Francona juggling the lineup so much. But, more and more I look at it, this isn't those 90s teams where you just put that same lineup in and day out. You got to
Mm-hmm.
keep these guys fresh for that long haul.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be also one of the keys to this season. Can they stay healthy? Can they stay fresh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to your point there about fans not appreciating the wear and tear of a Major League Baseball season, I think some of that comes down to you see players like Bartolo Colon who just look like the guy look like you or me walking around.
Oh my God, he's glorious.
Yeah, yeah. Or John Kruk back in the day,
Yes.
players like that. They're like, well, that's like the guys I see at softball on Sunday playing baseball. So. Yeah,
Sure.
I think that's part of it.
And a David Wells and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know
Yeah.
what? Those guys, I think we tend to underestimate, despite their girth, what
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal athletes they are,
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. And they are. And, of course, pitcher is more of a skill position in a lot of ways. I mean, all of baseball is maybe a bit more skilled than all the other sports. but still, it's true. You got to. Some of these guys can do that, but not everybody. And the wear and tear does wind down on you. And so, I didn't really have any complaints on how Francona was juggling the guys in and out of the lineup. I know a lot of players wanted things consistently. I think the key for me, more as a fan watching and the little I know about it, is to see consistency on how guys play in their defensive positions more than needing them in the lineup, 2 weeks straight for things.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to see Santana basically.
You don't like the Eric Wedge method of playing everybody plays everywhere?
I recognize that when you have a somewhat limited payroll, you need a certain flexibility out of guys, but Wedge, oh God, he drove me crazy. Oh, that drove me nuts. I forgot about him.
I'm glad I ruined your evening for you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Chris.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
that.
I'm always good for that, We won't
Wedge did have a glorious mustache, though. When he grew that thing out, that thing was...
The porn stash, yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. He needed to keep that all the time.
Absolutely. So, real quick, while we're talking about the Indians, we actually do have a question on Twitter. The Indians are notorious for selling out opening day and it being a big event in the city, and then you have the second game, and the question is how many people are going to show up. So we have Ice Cube at Browns Tailgate asks, how many fans will be at the second home game of the season? And he says, winner gets a hot dog. Hashtag hot dog race. So
he went in at, and it's a good question. He went in at 17,235. I think it's going to be a little more than that. I think fans are going to be excited. I still will put it just under 20. I'll say just a shade under 20. I'll go 19,800 and change. So that's where I think it'll be. But I do think that the changes in the stadium, the fact that I think opening day sold out, and they're playing a rival, will draw a decent crowd on out for that second game.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of you got the change of the stadium, you got the Tigers in town. They're actually opening on the weekend, so you have a chance to get some school kids and stuff in there as well. So I'm going to up you a little bit more, and this with the new additions to the stadium, people are going to be a little bit curious. So I'm going to say that I bet they have at least 25,000 for.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
If they pull 25,000, that'll be a nice weekend. That'll be good.
Well, and you think about it too. I think you're going to get a lot of Tigers fans that come down from Detroit.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So I think you're going to see 25,000 plus. But here was the question we kind of you and I talked about before we came on the air is, so the Browns are going to be releasing their uniforms here in a couple weeks, and do you think if they held that event at Cleveland Browns Stadium, or First Energy Stadium, I guess is what it's called now, would you have more fans in attendance for the uniform unveiling at the stadium or for the Indians' second game?
Oh, if more people showed up for the uniforms, I'd chug bleach. Oh, this is awful. I can't take the uniform talk anymore. And they're tweeting out about it now. I guess Dante Whitner today made some statement. I guess there's going to be like 9 different color option combinations for it, and I'm just thinking this is going to be hideous. These are going to be awful. I know people think I'm an old fart when it comes to some of these uniforms, but I like the Browns uniforms. I think they're a damn classic look. I don't need all these bells and whistles and neon crap all over them. I don't need all that. I'm fine if they want to change them. I am. I'm okay with that. I get it. I'm not one of these people who hold the uniforms to that it's sacrilegious to touch them. I'm just saying that I think they're all right, and I hope that they're not. We're brown and orange. Is it the most glorious color scheme in the world? No, it's not. I'm not going to lie that. But there are color scheme, and I'm okay with that. I don't need my team as a fan, as a Browns fan, I don't need my team to lead the league in jersey sales. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about that. Don't try and and duplicate the sales of other teams. And I'm just worried. I mean, I see what Tampa Bay did last year, and I'm like, oh my God, if something like this even comes close, it's going to be hideous.
Mhm.
So, but people were like, man, you're so negative about it. What happened to you? I'm thinking, seriously, what are the odds this is good? What percentage chance that these come out and they look great? What, 2%? I mean,
Who knows?
all these
And you
bells.
know what? Yeah, we're talking about uniforms, and you know why we're talking at uniforms? Because this team sucks.
It's
because they announced that on the opening day of free agency as opposed to signing some free agent players.
mm,
It's just the disconnect in this organization with the fans of it is just amazing. And I swear to God, the next time there's something positive about the Browns will be the first time.
all right. Let's jump into them then. So here's the deal, and I get pretty passionate and opinionated on this team. I don't have a huge complaint with free agency in the sense that I get the idea that you don't want to go out and spend everything.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. If they sign Darrelle Revis, it would have been fantastic excitement. What's he going to get us? One more win in a season? Maybe. What are we going to be, 6-10 then? Instead of the 5-11 that I think we're going to be.
You think they're going to be 5-11? That's
well. I'm trying to be positive. I actually don't think they're going to be 5-11. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see what they do. Here's my downer on it. When you bring in Josh McCown as your quarterback, and I know a lot of people have these pipe dreams about what we're going to do. We're going to trade for Sam Bradford. We're going to swoop in and hold up Philly for all these draft picks so that they can draft Marcus Mariota. We'll move up to draft Mariota. The truth of the matter is, at this point, the odds are highly likely that Josh McCown is going to be our starting quarterback, that Johnny Manziel cannot be counted on for anything, and even if he is playing, what are the odds are that he'll be pretty good, and that we will have drafted a third-round quarterback that we will want to see sit on the bench all season, but we know how we've seen this story before. He's going to get thrown in week 9, and then we'll see Thad Lewis in week 14 starting for this team. The handwriting is on the wall. We can say same old Browns. We can point at me being negative about it, but I think I'm trying to be realistic and extremely honest about it. I don't see a lot of ways around this unless these guys are much, much smarter than I think they are, and I don't think they
haven't
are.
shown that so far.
They have not shown that. You're 100% right. You can't count on that when they haven't demonstrated it. I think we're going into this, and it's going to be a really rough year. So I am not saying this as a fan of screaming, why did you sign somebody on day one of free agency? I get that. That. That strategy is not dead to me, but it would hold a hell of a lot more water if you had 2 first-round draft picks from last year that could actually get on the field and not embarrass anybody and not be suspended for the last game of the season. You had a wide receiver that didn't tank at the end of the year and help sabotage your team, and you didn't just sign a quarterback who is, 36 years old and has had 17 wins in his career. This is not a good formula. It is a very difficult sell to the fan base to say that this is going well. Here's my second point. When they came out, I had this argument a lot yesterday with some people on Twitter about what Ray Farmer said about, well, I feel like our quarterbacks can do X, Y, and Z, and he said he even went so far as to say don't sleep on Connor Shaw. And I thought, oh my God, if you are really trying to sell us on Connor Shaw, you either think we're really dumb or you're really dumb. And some people took offense at that, but I just want to explain that for a second. I'm not, people say, well, it's just a smokescreen. He's just talking up his players. I get all that, but nobody's buying. Who's buying the smokescreen is Connor Shaw. Who's he selling that to? I feel a bit like he's trying to sell us on we can win with these quarterbacks, and he's selling us so much that I'm starting to wonder, does he really think that they can win with these quarterbacks? Does he think that they can craft a team around them as such that they can go forward and actually put up 7, 8, 9 wins with this team, I'm a little concerned that he really thinks that it is not just a smokescreen, but that that Ray Farmer is really feeling that. And man, I am pretty down on this team right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you have every reason to be. I mean, for all the reasons you've listed, and there are more. I mean, they're still the laughing stock of the NFL, despite their denials and everything else that's out there. I mean, it's funny that you hear the coach is the most credible person on with this team now, and everybody else is questionable at best. And I agree. I like Mike Pettin. I've liked him since he was hired. I think he is a good football coach. I mean, the question is if the season goes down in burning flames, is he going to survive it? And I really can't say he will, because our owner has just shown a proclivity to change things. Hopefully he'll learn some patience, but then again, I mean, you hear these insane reports out there about he's trying to flip-flop teams with Tennessee now, which I understand are supposedly false, but you never know.
I want to touch upon that for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Because somehow on Twitter I became the designated Jason La Canfora defender, and I'm defending him, not so much him, but his report in this sense. I'm going to touch on the report and then touch upon why I feel like it kind of needs to be addressed and needs to be defended in some way. All right, so I read his report, and he says he had multiple league sources say, basically, this has been discussed. Keep an eye on it. Other owners are watching to see if Haslam wants to do this. They know that he wanted the Titans before. Then La Canfora says, hey, I don't think that there's much shot of this happening, but it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, A, it's sensational journalism. B, he's got an axe to grind. He's working for Lombardi again to just bring the Browns down. All of this stuff. And I'm thinking, if you had conversations with multiple sources, either in the league's office or in touch with owners who said, yeah, I think he would like to do this if he could do it. It would be difficult to do, but I think he would like to do it. How is that not a story?
Mm-hmm.
He's not saying it will happen, but I don't understand how that's not a story. I don't understand how that's not legitimate. Now, one person pointed out, and it's very true, he did not go within his article to get a quote from the Browns on it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough, but even if he got the quote denying it, I don't think it changes the essence of the story. It was like when everybody blasted him for basically printing what Kyle Shanahan said when he went out the door. Okay, maybe he did use Kyle as a source, and maybe he, maybe it was one particular point of view, but it doesn't mean that that particular point of view is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my whole point in this defense. It's not so much that I think Jason La Canfora is a great reporter. I have no idea. I don't read all his reports.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of, why do we, as Browns fans, feel the need to attack the credibility and jump all over anybody who seems to be willing to point out that this front office may actually have a lot of issues, that our owner, who, by the way, is, on the, still might get an indictment for all the fraud that he's doing in his other business. Why would it be impossible to think that he might be up to some things that are shady or unethical or just straight odd as an NFL owner? I don't see why these things are so impossible to conceive of. What has Farmer and Haslam done that have given all these fans this confidence to say that, no, La Canfora's really got this axe to grind. These people are just crapping on us because we're the Browns. It's just sensationalism. Really? Because I've seen a team that in the last 15 years has done nothing competently.
Mm-hmm.
They've done nothing at all to earn all this trust and defense from its fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it at all. I'm not saying people can't be fans. I understand a certain level of defensiveness. It's like when you attack us, we feel the need to strike back. I get some of that. But Browns fans, take a step back and think when you read some of these things, there might be a grain of truth to it. Because guess what? This is not a good run organization. You have to demonstrate that it's a good run organization before I can say it's a good run organization, because it's not. Show me it's a good run organization, then I'll defend you against reporters attacking you. But until that point, I can't. I can't defend you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not going to say that there isn't any truth to what he wrote. I mean, uh, it's very possible that he would love to make that switch. I mean, he may have some buyer's remorse, and it said, he wanted to get a team. So I don't doubt that he would want the team from his home state, where we all know he's such a big Tennessee guy. And his brother's the governor and all that. So I have no doubt that he'd love to have that team, and he has this team now. Like I said, who is to say that there's any validity to whether this could actually happen, or whether he's tried to do anything to make it happen, those kind of things. But I don't doubt that he would want it to happen at all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. He and his family are a huge deal down in Tennessee. For those who are listening or will listen that don't know, I'm a big fan of the University of Tennessee's football team for a long time due to a really close friend of mine who I met freshman year of college, whose family had season tickets for generations. So I've been going to Tennessee games for 25 years now. All right, and so it's a wonderful experience. It's a lot of fun. I knew of the Haslam name long before he became owner of the Browns. And, his brother is governor of the damn state. They are everywhere. His name is the practice facility for the football team. His name is the business school. I mean, it's a big deal. It's not inconceivable to think that he would want to go back to Tennessee and own that team. He wanted to buy that team before, when Bud Adams was still alive. This is a fact. We know this. It's crazy to think a swap could happen. It's not crazy to think that he might want a swap to happen. I had somebody argue with me today and saying, like, well, it's just, it's full of, Locke and Fora is painting the owner full of hate. And I'm thinking, full of hate? Why? What? Is it hateful for Haslam to want to go back home and own the team there? I don't think so. I think it's crazy to think you could pull it off. I think it's crazy to try. But, if you discussed it, it seems to me that's worthy of a story, but I guess not now. I mean, I think the thing is that we're so beat up over this team that we, as Cleveland fans, we are willing to take shots at our home team and to say they're bad.
We don't want anybody else doing it, though.
Yep. And you know what? I get it. I've done the same thing. I'm a hypocrite. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm all high and mighty about it. I get it. I just don't get it in this case. I just don't get it with a team that went 7-9 and collapsed down the stretch and has a real talent issue in places. And I have doubts that they will be able to repair that. I don't know why that seems to be a opinion that is really out in left field. I don't get it.
Yeah. So real quick, let's touch on two other quick things with the Browns, and we'll move on to the Cavaliers for a few minutes. So two other things that have come up this week is the possibility of them being on Hard Knocks, and then also this latest report that Johnny Manziel is expected to rejoin the team from getting out of rehab on April 20th. So what do you think about those two things?
I'm all for the Hard Knocks as a fan. I think it would be great. I think it would be fantastic. I'd love to watch them. I don't know how any fan could see it as otherwise. Is it a distraction that's going to keep us from the playoffs? I seriously doubt it.
Yeah.
I don't.
They got a lot more problems at Hard Knocks of doing that.
That's true, and I don't see it as. I get why a coach, a team would not want it. I will say, I'm surprisingly sympathetic to Manziel and the Browns' argument about Hard Knocks, in that they would rather not have them around.
Sure.
For Johnny's reason. I think that's actually legit. I think it's legit to say that. I'm okay with that. I am. And as far as Johnny getting out, I was pretty, as you well know, Chris, I was very down on playing him last year. I wasn't down on him so much.
We all were, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't so much down on him as a prospect.
No, we wanted to get him originally.
Yeah. I'm much more down on him now after watching him in camp and seeing his approach to everything, and I've changed my opinion somewhat on quarterbacks coming into the league, partially because of him and and other things that I've seen. I think I underestimated the difficulty of the transition from what he was in college to what he needed to be in the pros. I thought he
Hmm.
had certain skill sets that could translate and
Hmm.
that he'd be able to transition over, but his personal life, his physical size, and I just think that it is a much greater difficulty has made me down on him as a prospect.
Hmm.
That aside, I'm rooting for the kid in his personal life.
Hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
got it's got to be tough. I feel like a bit like he has always been under the spotlight. He's been thrown in the deep end of the pool, and we've all made jokes and cracks online and in articles and things like that. And I actually kind of feel bad, and I'm very impressed he's stayed in rehab as long as he has, and I think that it's. I hope he has success.
Yeah.
I will say this one last thing, Chris, and I'll let you jump in. I will say I don't think he. I think it'll be very difficult to count on him for much of anything this year. Not just the previous things I mentioned about why I'm more down on him as a prospect, but I think everything that he's just went through. I can only imagine. I've not gone through that. I don't have anybody close to me that's gone through it, but I have talked to some other people who have gone through it, and I think it's a lot to expect for him to come in and be ready to go through the grind of training camp come August.
Sure.
I think it's a lot.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, and you got to think about it in this regards too. So, if it's you or me that's coming out of rehab, we have a lot of anonymity in our life, and we're not going to have people
That's a
following
good
us
point.
left and right. Whereas he's coming out, he's already this huge celebrity, and anybody and everybody is going to be out with the camera phones. I mean, he's going to, and I know they've talked about this on the radio already, he's going to have to live a very sheltered life, I think, at this point, and that's going to be a huge transition for him because it's just not how he's lived. And I mean, it's going to be part of the process, but everything he does, every step he takes, every face he makes, everything is going to be scrutinized and over scrutinized, and it's going to be on TMZ and it's going to be on ESPN and everywhere. He is going to have the entire world's eyes are going to be on him on this, and this is going to not only be a difficult time personally, this is going to be the most difficult probably anybody will have ever gone through with this stuff because the eyes of the world are going to be on him, and it's not fair to him, but it is what it is, and the life that he has chosen.
Yeah, I would hope that he would could get kind of a football mentor too of someone who's been through it, like a Chris Carter. I'm not saying Chris
Mm-hmm.
Carter because
Sure, sure.
Carter's in the media, so I'm not sure that he's the best guy for that. But someone like that to say, hey, man, I failed, and this is how I coped when I came back. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be nice to see that. But even more importantly, I hope that he has enough structure around him in his personal life to just kind of pull through,
Yeah.
and to make it easy. I almost wonder if it's in his best interest for the Browns to, in essence, redshirt him this year. You know,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
it may be. I don't know. They seem to react today like they expect him to be at minicamp come April 20th. I was a little surprised at that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that as well. I mean, you hear all these reports. Well, he's not in the last few weeks. He's not going to play this year. He's going to sit out this year. Blah blah blah. Then all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, we expect him back on April 20th. It's like, really? Yeah. I mean, it's not a hard deadline, but we expect him back then.
Yeah, and
So
I think that was unfortunate to say that because what if he's not back? I
yeah.
mean, how are fans and media going to react to it if he's not there, if he can't show up, if it's not it? I mean, now granted, the Browns know more than we do, but
Hmm.
I would think that they should just kind of downplay everything on this. I mean, I like it touches upon one other little thing, and then we can move on to the Cavs if you want. You know, Justin Gilbert, he
Hmm.
flew under the radar a lot with whatever his personal issues are.
Hmm.
And like you, I like Mike Pettin a ton.
Hmm.
But I think Mike Pettin did him a little disservice back a few weeks ago, maybe it
Hmm.
was a month ago, when he kind of touched upon Gilbert's problems,
Hmm.
and saying something along the line like, yeah, it was kind of worse than we thought, or, stuff that developed throughout the year. because I think it just leads it out there where everyone's now wondering, well, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I think it was maybe had done him a little disservice. Maybe it was best to just downplay that and keep that, you know, just not have to answer that question. You know, Mike may have been a little too honest there for Gilbert's own good, you know. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think I guess what I'm getting at is I think it may be better for the individuals within the Browns and the front office to have a strategy of to say, let's downplay everything as far as the expectations for these guys. It may be better off. One of the reasons they may not is that they are feeling pressure to perform now. Because how much longer, like you said, if they have a bad season, can we really expect Farmer and Patton to be back? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Patton, we all love Patton because of his honesty, and I think that's part of the problem is he's so honest that he sometimes puts his own foot in his mouth. And it's just how he's wired. But so
yeah, it is.
He's just making an honest, and I would say even maybe a semi-innocent comment, and then everybody jumps on it and like, well, what's he mean by that? So whether he intended to is completely nonchalant, just saying he just had more issues last year than we expected. Now everybody's looking into it like, well, what happened? So, I mean, it could have been something so minor, but because of how he said it, everybody just jumps to conclusions with this team. So
yeah, it makes me feel like what was going on there.
Yeah.
Like that it was really bad. So, but who knows? We'll have to see.
Yeah, because I mean, he could have been just referring to the same stuff that a lot of the players were saying at the end of the year too. We don't know, and he's not going any further than what he already said. But everybody just assumes that it's something else. But anyway, so that's one of those things. One other quick thing with the NFL that came out, I just want to mention it quick is you heard about Chris Borland, the linebacker with the 49ers.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, so he retired. He's 24 years old. He just came into the league last year, and he's decided to retire because of he got a concussion during training camp last year, and he's just talked to so many experts and stuff, and he's concerned for his own health, and he just doesn't. He's seen so many players go down a bad road with the head injuries and stuff that he decided to walk away from football. So. I think it's great that I mean, that had to have been a tough decision. And, I mean, you hear that he's returning 3/4 of his signing bonus. It's not like the team had to come after him for it. He's voluntarily doing it. And I just think a lot of these guys, they question their motives and stuff. But I want to give the guy some credit for, you know, he's standing up and making a decision about himself. And I hope people don't think he's being selfish by doing this, that he's being selfish to his teammates or not, but I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to your health, you have to take care of yourself and worry about the other stuff later.
Yeah, well said, Chris. I think you and I are on the same page on that. It's also nice that how do I say this? He has the opportunity to do that, to walk away, and I mean it from this standpoint. I don't know much about him, but the little bit that I read is that it sounds like his family has some money, not necessarily rich or a ton, but enough, and he was able to get involved in the family business, which is some sort of finance or something like that. And so it's nice that he has that to fall back on, that it's not like, oh my God, I have to do this or I have nothing.
Yeah.
So he at least had that luxury. But I'm not one to say that this is going to change the face of the NFL.
No.
But I will say that he might be the first of others who start to make this call much earlier than we ever expected. I mean, I don't know why Jake Locker retired, but he retired early.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, Patrick Willis for the 49ers who retired early, I think he would have gone further if he could have. But still, he retired at a relatively young age due to injuries. And I think the more this gets out, I think we will see more players hang it up early. I don't think it'll be a groundswell. I don't think it's anything that's going to threaten the league from that standpoint.
No.
But I do think it's something interesting that happened. And like you, I applaud him for it in that it's not easy to walk away from something you love and think about your own health in that fashion. And I'm glad we have some players who at least can do that and think of that and do
Yeah.
it well.
Absolutely. Very well said. So, yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up real quick. I know it was completely off topic, but I thought it was important to mention that. And so, real quick, I know we're already a little bit over, but so Cavaliers have clinched the second, or not clinched the second spot, but have clinched a playoff berth since first time since LeBron left the first time. And right now they're holding on to that 2 seed. So next time we talk, they should be in their first round playoff series or getting ready for the second one, possibly. What do you think as they finish out these last 3 weeks?
I think the team we see is the team we're going to have. I don't think we're going to see anything drastic changes of improvement and or detriments to them from here on through. I think we'll have to see. What we'll have to see is that a 7-game playoff series is different from what we see now, in that adjustments have to be made along throughout a series, and that'll be fascinating to see if how Blatt adjusts as the series goes through, and how the players adjust, how they listen to their coach, trust him, and adjust throughout a series. But I think that they're going to hold on to the 2 spot. I have no worries about that. I think they'll rest a lot of guys and hopefully come in healthy for that playoff stretch, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I am someone who, normally I like to say be a bit cautious on my predictions and things like that, but I don't see any team really giving them trouble until they play Atlanta in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm assuming Atlanta makes it, and I'm assuming the Cavs make it, and I think that one will be a dogfight. I think Atlanta's style gives them a lot of matchup problems. I know a lot of people were concerned, maybe concerned is too strong a words, didn't want to face the Pacers in the first round of the playoff series. I am someone who does not prescribe to that. I kind of scoff at that. I looked at them yesterday, or was it this morning, and I see a team that is in 10th place. They're not even in the playoffs. They are 10 games out of 500, or they're 10 games under 500. I'm supposed to be concerned about this team because of what? Really, a guy who's coming back from a horrific injury, throwing into a mix where we know how well, since we saw at the beginning of the season, how well chemistry with a team, how much that affects you in basketball. I'm not worried about Atlanta. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference rosters. I mean, I'm not that worried about anybody. Maybe Miami a little bit with Wade, because he's still capable of some spectacular things every once in a while, but he's not enough to carry anybody through. This team should do well, and I'd like to see them use these first rounds these first couple rounds of playoffs as a way to really build on what they want, establish their playoff rotation, get everybody clicking in the way they can, and then I hope they're ready for Atlanta. They're ready for Atlanta.
Absolutely. So, like you, I think they'll lock up the 2 spot here, and they'll rest some people down the stretch here. I actually think the playoffs is David Blatt's opportunity to shine. I think when he has the opportunity to have the team practice in between games, it has the extra time where they're not playing back-to-backs and stuff like that. I think that's where you're really going to see him come out and really see the strategist that we were told about coming over from I'm blanking right now, from
Israel.
Israel, thank you,
Sure.
and Russia. So I think that the team's going to be rolling on all cylinders, and he's already shown that he can make some adjustments on the fly and getting the players to play together. So I'd be really curious to see. I think they have a good chance to get to the finals. There's not really any teams that other than Atlanta and probably same thing. I'm kind of skeptical about Miami just because I don't know what it is, but LeBron doesn't seem to play the same way against them as he does against most other teams. And maybe once he gets to the playoffs, that'll all change. So I'm really curious to see what kind of player he is then versus how he's played through this season. Because we've seen him play great a lot, but we've also seen him. I don't know if it's coasting or just beat up or something has taken a toll on him, and he's just not the same player a lot of times. So I want to see playoff LeBron go out there, and not the playoff LeBron that played for the Heat against the Mavericks in 11. So it'll be interesting. I can't wait for the playoffs to start, and I've just been impressed with the way they're playing on that, especially when they played that Texas trip against San Antonio and Dallas. I mean, I know they blew the last game against Miami, but they played really well up to then. So,
Boy, that San Antonio game was spectacular. I mean, what can you say? I mean, I know you and I had this conversation at the start of the year to say we as Cavs fans have to enjoy this ride through the season, and that Kyrie's performance and LeBron's in that San Antonio game is something I am not soon going to forget, and one of the more memorable things that I have seen from this Cavs team, and it was fun to watch. It is, it is, and no matter what happens going forward, moments like that are rare, and I'm really going to savor that. Yeah. It was a thrill. It was fantastic to watch. I mean, Kyrie is, I mean, he's just amazing. He's really blossomed into his own. He's my favorite player on the team. I mean, LeBron's the best player, but Kyrie is just a thrill to watch. And, you know, so many pieces. We're all focused on Kevin Love, obviously. There's a lot of Love discussions. I am less concerned about that than I think a lot of people, in the sense that I think he's filling a role. It's not maybe the ideal thing for him or for the team, but he's doing what he can, and it's effective. You know, he may not be as great as we wanted, but guess what? When he's out there in the lineup, the Cavs play really well. His floor spacing is fantastic. He hits the boards hard, you know, but take that thing that we all need to focus on aside, you know, and take a look at it. I mean, Tristan played so well. J.R. Smith, Shumpert, all these guys. It's just been so fun to watch, and I think we tend to get caught up in the worry of the playoffs, or the, you know, why isn't Kevin Love putting up 20 and really kind of dominating down in the post? Yeah, those are all legit concerns, but we can't let that step over the fact that this is a great team, and it's been a lot of fun watching them put it together.
Absolutely. So it should be a fun playoffs to watch, and we'll be talking about that next month when we come back. We'll be right in the playoffs there. We'll have first couple of weeks of the Indian season to talk about, and also I'm sure we'll be ramping up for the Browns Super Bowl, the NFL draft, and hear all kind of fun stuff to talk about then too. So, and maybe even get a couple of travel stories from us. So, so that's going to be all for us this evening. Real quick, any final thoughts, Mark?
No, not really. I think that I'm looking forward to what we see out of the Cavs and what we see out of the Indians. I'm going to miss some of this being abroad. It'll be a little weird. I'm going to try and see. I've got, you and I being out-of-towners from Cleveland, I tend to watch a lot of things online. I sign up for all the packages. So I'm taking my iPad with me, and I have no idea if I can even – am I going to be able to catch a Cavs or an Indians game abroad? I'm going to try it. I'll see I don't know. I don't think it'll work.
Maybe. If you have Wi-Fi, maybe. I don't know, but with the Wi-Fi. But
I'll have Wi-Fi, so we'll see. But they tend to look and see where you're coming from to see if you're in blackout areas, and I've never seen England on the map for it, so we'll see. But it might be fun. We'll see.
We'll find out. If not, you'll get to see the highlights, I'm sure.
Exactly.
So that is all for Mark and I. So go Indians. Should be a fun season. Well, we got to get out. They got to get out the gates quickly. Start off well, and things will go well. If they don't, then it could be another long year. Looking forward to the Cavs playoffs, and who God only knows what surprises the Browns will bring us over the next month. But so that's all for Mark and I. Join JN, Chris Kidd, and I sometime next week for the next NC Speakeasies podcast. And otherwise, we will see you guys next time.